Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
The morning had started out fine, with the usual hum of activity in the orchards. But that calm was shattered when I got the call. Patrick Daniels, the new loan officer at Credit Assistance Bank, wanted to talk. "We need the $700,000 loan repaid immediately," he had said in a cold tone. I'd almost dropped the phone. What was he talking about? We'd been making payments on time for years. But that wasn't all. Patrick threw in an accusation that left me speechless. One of my employees had supposedly extorted $79,000 from his elderly grandfather for unsolicited services. I was furious. Extortion, fraud, in my company. This wasn't something I could ignore. I arrived at the bank ready for a confrontation. Walking into Patrick's office, I could see the smug look on his face. He didn't even bother to stand when I entered. "Mr. Arnold," he said, almost sneering. "You're here about the loan, I presume." I didn't waste time. "You've accused us of financial mismanagement and fraud. I'm here to clear this up. Where's the proof?" Patrick leaned back in his chair, enjoying himself. "That's not something I can share, Mr. Arnold. But we flagged concerning activity, and this loan needs to be repaid." I crossed my arms, determined not to back down. "And this nonsense about one of my employees? You better have more than rumors." Patrick's smugness faltered for a second. "It's protocol, Mr. Arnold. If you have an issue, take it up with the manager." I left his office with fire in my veins. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Patrick had crossed a line, and I wasn't about to let him off easy. He'd be hearing from me again soon. The next day, I found myself back at the bank, the tension thick in the air. I didn't want to escalate things, but Patrick had left me no choice. As I stepped into the branch, my jaw clenched. This was no longer just a dispute. It was about the integrity of my business. The bank's manager, Linda Grayson, greeted me at the door. "Edward," she began, her voice strained. "I heard about the situation. Let's get this resolved, shall we?" I followed her to a small meeting room, where Patrick sat, fingers drumming arrogantly on the table. His eyes met mine with the same smugness as before, and it took everything in me to stay composed. Linda wasted no time. "Patrick, Mr. Arnold has been a valued client for over a decade. I trust there's been some misunderstanding." Patrick's smile was tight. "There's no misunderstanding. We've received complaints, and it's our responsibility to take action." He threw a folder across the table toward Linda. "This is the report on the alleged fraud. His employee charged my grandfather for services he never requested." I leaned forward, my voice low and controlled. "You're accusing my company of extortion based on what exactly?" "We don't have any records of such transactions, and I personally oversee every deal." Patrick shrugged. "Doesn't matter. The complaint stands, and until this is cleared up, we need to consider the loan at risk." Linda flipped through the report, her face growing pale. "Patrick," she said sharply, "there's nothing substantial here. No concrete evidence, no names, not even a signed statement from your grandfather. This is incredibly weak." Patrick's eyes flickered with doubt for the first time. I didn't think it would be necessary to hit all that. We should trust family in cases like these." I couldn't help it. I laughed bitterly. Trust is earned, Patrick, and right now you're doing everything to destroy it." Linda shot Patrick a look that could cut steel. "We are not making baseless accusations without evidence. I'll personally review the records to confirm this claim, but as of now, I see no reason for Mr. Arnold to repay the loan immediately." Patrick opened his mouth to argue, but Linda held up her hand. "Enough, Patrick. I think it's clear you've overstepped." The silence that followed was deafening. I stood, my hands shaking from the pent-up anger. "If this is how you treat long-standing clients, we're done here. I'll be moving my business elsewhere." Patrick's face flushed as he stammered, but I didn't wait for a response. As I walked out, Linda called after me. "Edward, please, Let's talk this through. But I was done talking. The clash had drawn a line in the sand, and Patrick was going to face the consequences of his arrogance soon enough. 2 days after the clash with Patrick, I found myself summoned back to the bank by none other than Linda Grayson. This time, it wasn't a polite request. It was an insistence, with a tone that hinted at something more significant. As I entered the bank's sleek, glass-paneled conference room, Linda was already seated, her hands folded on the table. Next to her, to my surprise, sat Patrick, looking far less confident than before. His posture was rigid, his fingers tapping nervously against the armrest. "Edward, thank you for coming in," Linda began, her voice measured but firm. "There have been developments, and it's important that we address the situation thoroughly." I sat down, my gaze briefly locking with Patrick's. He quickly averted his eyes. Something had changed. I didn't need to be a mind reader to know that he was in trouble. "We've reviewed the claims made against your business," Linda continued, cutting straight to the point. "And we found no evidence to support Patrick's allegations. There was no employee from Arnold's Fruit Paradise involved in any fraudulent activity." A small relieved breath escaped me. "I appreciate that," I said, though my tone was more guarded than thankful. There was still something in the air that felt unfinished. Patrick shifted in his seat, visibly uncomfortable. I might have been mistaken about the employee," he muttered, barely meeting my eyes. "But the loan." Linda cut him off, her voice sharper now. "Patrick, enough. You acted prematurely, and your handling of this has been, frankly, unacceptable." I leaned forward slightly, narrowing my eyes at Patrick. "So all of this, these accusations, these threats, were based on what? A misunderstanding? A mistake?" Patrick fumbled for words, but Linda spoke before he could respond. "Edward, I won't mince words. Patrick's conduct was completely out of line. His actions not only jeopardized your trust, but they've also damaged the bank's relationship with a valued client." She shot a stern glance at Patrick before turning back to me. "I'm here to apologize on behalf of the bank and to assure you that this will be dealt with." I crossed my arms, still not entirely convinced. "Dealt with how?" Linda paused, her expression hardening. "Effective immediately, Patrick is being relieved of his duties as your loan officer. He'll be reassigned, and I'll personally handle your account from here on out." Patrick's face turned pale, his hands clenched into fists on the table. I could see the frustration boiling inside him, but he remained silent, likely knowing any argument now would only dig his hole deeper. "Is that supposed to fix everything?" I asked, leaning back in my chair. "You can't expect me to simply move on from this." Linda nodded solemnly. "I understand your frustration, Edward. If I were in your shoes, I'd feel the same way. That's why we're prepared to offer you a substantial rate reduction on the loan, as well as extend your payment terms. We want to make this right." The room fell silent for a moment. I took a deep breath, considering the offer. They were trying to make amends, and I could tell that Linda was doing her best to salvage the situation. Patrick, however, remained silent, his career clearly in shambles. I stood outside the bank, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the sidewalk. Linda's offer had been tempting, but something about it didn't sit right. Trust, once broken, wasn't easily repaired. As I watched the cars pass by, I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I arrived at the bank, this time not to negotiate, but to deliver my decision. Linda met me in her office, her expression cautiously optimistic. Patrick was nowhere to be seen, likely already reassigned to some desk job far removed from clients like me. "Edward," Linda greeted me, gesturing for me to sit. "I hope you've had time to think things over. We're eager to move forward." I remained standing, hands in my pockets. "I thought about it," I said, my voice steady. "And I've decided to sever ties with Credit Assistance Bank." Her face faltered, the smile disappearing. "Edward, I understand you're upset about what happened, but this isn't just about Patrick," I interrupted. "It's about the principal. The way he handled things was more than a mistake. It was a breach of trust. And that's something I can't overlook. Linda sighed, leaning forward in her chair. We've made adjustments, offered concessions. Is there truly nothing we can do to change your mind? I shook my head. It's not about the money or the terms, Linda. It's about knowing that when push comes to shove, the bank's got my back. After what's happened, I don't feel that anymore. Her eyes flickered with frustration, though she tried to mask it. You've been a valued client for years, Edward. We don't want to lose you. And I appreciate that, I said, softening slightly. But I've made up my mind. I'm taking my business elsewhere. A long silence followed. Linda's jaw tightened, but she nodded slowly. If that's your decision, I won't stand in your way. I handed her the formal notice of termination for my accounts. She accepted it, her fingers gripping the paper a little too tightly. I'll ensure everything is processed smoothly. Thank you, Linda. I wish things had ended differently. As I turned to leave, she called after me. Edward, for what it's worth, I'm sorry it came to this. I paused at the door, glancing back at her. So am I. Patrick Daniels sat slouched in the back corner of the bank's break room, staring at his phone. His hands trembled slightly as he scrolled through the messages from upper management. He'd been on edge for days, and now the weight of his mistakes seemed to crash down all at once. Edward Arnold's decision to pull his accounts had been the first domino, and now several more clients had followed suit, complaining about Patrick's rude and unprofessional behavior. The branch manager, Linda, entered the room, her heels clicking sharply on the tiled floor. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. Patrick, she said firmly, crossing her arms, we need to talk. Patrick looked up, his eyes hollow. He could feel the conversation coming like a freight train, and there was no dodging it. Linda, I know, he muttered. I screwed up. This isn't just about screwing up, Linda interrupted. It's about trust, professionalism, and the way you've handled clients. Edward Arnold's business leaving was just the tip of the iceberg. Several more clients have expressed serious concerns about your conduct. Patrick swallowed hard. I can fix it. Just give me a chance. I didn't mean for things to get this bad. Linda's expression softened for a moment, but only briefly. It's out of my hands now, Patrick. Head office has reviewed the complaints, and they've made their decision. Patrick leaned forward, gripping the edge of the table as if it could anchor him. You're firing me. Linda sighed, shaking her head. I tried to vouch for you, but there's only so much I can do. The position you're in now doesn't reflect the bank's standards. You've been reassigned. To what? Patrick asked, his voice a low murmur. You'll be working in a non-client-facing role, starting tomorrow, Linda said, carefully. Manual filing, sorting documents, something behind the scenes. Patrick sat in stunned silence. He'd gone from being an ambitious loan officer, aiming for a promotion, to being reduced to a back-office worker. It felt like a punishment, but he couldn't argue. He brought this on himself. I'll pack up my things, Patrick said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Linda nodded, her face unreadable. Take care, Patrick. As Patrick left the room, a deep sense of defeat settled over him. His ambition had crumbled in front of him, leaving only the ruins of what could have been.